So now we have the ability to add and remove crew members as well as designate what their title is for this individual movie. Let's go ahead and do the exact same thing for our cast members as well. It's going to be relatively similar. So within our movies controller here, inside of our edit method, this is where we're querying the array of crew members applied to the individual movie that we're editing. Whenever it comes to create, remember, if we scroll on up to our create page, we don't need to worry about this, the movie's data, or anything in general because nothing has been applied to the individual movie as we're just creating it there. But for our edit, we do need to worry about that. So we can give our crew members here a copy, give ourselves a couple of new lines and paste it in, change it from crew to now cast. And we also need to change the relationship to the exact same. So switch it from crew to cast. The rest of the query there can remain the same as it's just filtering it down to the individual movie that we're editing and then ordering it by its sort order. So that applies for our cast as well. Then all we have to do is add our cast members into our page state. So let's go do that. So cast members right there. And now we have access to both our crew as well as our cast members inside of our create or edit page, specifically whenever we're editing a movie. So let's go ahead and jump into our create or edit page now and come down to our H4 and the div where we have our X data members applied that we're passing in our crew members. Essentially, we're going to want to replicate this whole section. So I'm going to hit the caret to collapse that down and make copying this just a little bit easier. Give that a copy, give ourselves a couple new lines underneath it, and then paste it on in. For the most part, things can remain the same here. If we scroll on up to the top where we have this section, we're going to want to change instances where we have specifically crew to cast. So for example, our heading here will change to cast members from crew members. Where we're passing in our crew members, we're going to want to instead pass in our cast members. The X data that we have here from AlpineJS is going to be scoped to this particular div, so we don't need to worry about collision between this div and our crew members div up above it. And since they're going to be scoped to the divs, that means this members is going to be used for this member array, and up above, this members would be used for the crew members array. Okay, so let's scroll back down and continue going through and replacing instances where we have crew with cast. We also want to do that with our name. So rather than crew, we'll have cast as the name prefix for our fields. And then down here, cast there as well. And in addition, this field itself is not going to be a title, but rather a character name. So within the name field of our cast array, remember this index here is what's making this an array. And then the second square brackets is the individual property name inside of this index of the array. We want to change that property name from title to character name. We also want to change the reference of the X model from members index title to character name there. And then from title up here on the label to character name there too. And I believe everything else should be able to remain the same because we're still working with our synists. So the options there remain the same. We're still working with our synist there. So the X model there remains the same. And we're still working with a variable called members scoped to this individual div working with our cast members. And if we scroll down a little bit, we also have the add button. The click functionality should remain the same there too. Although we do want to switch title here to character name as well and switch add crew member to add cast member there as well too. Cool. So if we give that a save and jump back into our browser and take a look at things, we should now see we have a crew members section as well as a cast members section. We should be able to add a cast member and it will add somebody in where we can select the cast member and give them some character name there. The last thing that we have left to do is the actual store and update functionality of the cast members here. So if we go ahead and hide our browser back away, and we'll first want to jump into our movie validator. And right here we have our crew. We can go ahead and give that section, including the optional down there, a copy, give ourselves a new line and paste that in, changing the name from crew to now cast, as that matches within our create or edit field what we have named these actual field names. So that's the root key name, and then inside of there is going to be an array of objects where we'll have an ID and a character name property inside of it. So for our validator, we'll want to reflect that where we have an array of objects with an ID and a character name property inside of it. Since we are still working with synists, the ID validator there can remain the same, so we're A-OK for that. And we can jump into our movies controller now. Scroll on down and we can take care of our update first. So in addition to extracting out our crew, we also want to extract out our cast now. Scroll on down a little bit further and give our crew members portion a copy and a paste, changing the name from crew to cast and crew to cast there as well. Then rather than having a title, we have a character name there. And I'm going to go ahead and give that a copy and paste it where we have title there, as well as title there, so that now we have character name in all three places. Then we have a number of red squigglies going on, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a save so that it formats. And last thing that we need to do is add these to our movie, just as we are here for our crew. So we can await movie related cast members and sync those in as cast members there. Otherwise, provide in an empty array if none were provided. Give that a save, and that should be our update functionality done. We can go ahead and scroll on up now to our store functionality, which should be right up here. And oh, it looks like we left this out altogether. So we're going to want to go ahead and account for it so we can extract our cast and our crew out here. And we'll want this to take place after we have created the movie. So we'll want to grab a reference of our movie. So const movie there. And the actual functionality is going to be the exact same as we have within our update. So if we scroll on down to where we have this section, we could probably go ahead and just extract this out into a service so that we don't have to have this in two separate places, as it's quite a decently sized portion. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out, and let's go down to our services, movie service, and we'll just put this down at the bottom. We can do static async. We can call this method something like sync cast and crew, and we can accept in cast and crew members, and we'll fix the typing here for that in a second. Let's go ahead and first just paste what we had in. Okay, let's go ahead and scroll on up, and now let's fix the types for our cast and crew here. So I believe we should be able to infer this from our validator. So we should be able to use infer. Looks like we might already have that imported, and provided the type of our movie validator, and import that from our validator. Now this is our entire movie validator. So if we take a look at the type here, it's going to come back with our poster URL, title, summary, so on and so forth. We just care about the cast here. So I believe we should be able to reach into there and specify that we just care about the cast type for that. And now if we take a look at our cast type, it's just an array of ID and character name or undefined. So cool. That matches exactly what we're looking for. Now we can do the exact same thing here for our crew. So we can infer type of movie validator and reach just for the crew there. Give that a save for formatting. And let's scroll on down and see if we have any red squigglies. We do. We aren't passing the movie in. So we also want to pass the movie in here as well. So that will be movie of type movie model. Okay, so let's give that one more scroll through our method. And now it looks like everything there is happy. So we should be able to give that a save, jump back into our movies controller. And let's now await movie service. Remember, we set that as a static function, so we don't need to instantiate our movie service at all, but rather we could just use this as a static method and call our sync cast and crew, provide in our movie, the cast and the crew data that we have, and now we should be okie doke. Furthermore, if we didn't want to save our movie, if the cast and crew failed or vice versa, we could wrap this in a database transaction as well. So before we covered how you could do it with a try catch, but there's also managed transactions too. So for this, we could do await DB to reach for the database module dot and call transaction. And this accepts in an option. If you take a look at the overloads, that is a callback that's then provided in the transaction client. And any operations that we perform inside of the transaction callback will then essentially be wrapped inside of a try catch. And if anything fails, then the callback will self-manage itself and roll back our changes. And if the callback completes successfully, then it will go ahead and commit the changes. So let's run through that in practice. So we have an async function that accepts in our TRX of transaction. Then we provided in a callback function. We can move our movie merge data inside of there, as well as our sync cast and crew. Of course, now we need to bind that transaction to these operations. And we have an instance of our movie here. And for our sync cast and crew, we're working with the relationship from our movie. So if we bind the transaction directly to our movie instance, it will cascade through that relationship. So we can just do movie.use transaction here and provide it the TRX. And now this save call will use the transaction off the movie model, and our sync cast and crew will use the transaction off of the movie model as well, because it directly works with those relationships right down here. Awesome. So let's jump back into our movies controller. I got an extra line right there I'm going to get rid of. Give that a save, and we should be a-okay now for our update. And now let's go and scroll on up to our store method right up here, as we need to do something relatively similar. So we can go ahead and start with our transaction. So we'll await db.transaction, just as we did before. This will be an async function that accepts in our TRX for our transaction. we can move our movie creation directly inside of there and tell it to use this transaction via the second argument. Remember, client is how we pass this in, so we can specify a client of TRX. And now our transaction is bound into our movie, and it's going to work the exact same way as it did for our update by cascading through our relationships. So we can now do await movie service dot sync cast and crew, pass in our movie instance, as well as our cast and our crew members from our validator. And now we'll create our movie. If everything with that completes successfully, then we'll move on to syncing our cast and crew. If everything with that completes successfully, we'll then exit out of our callback function right here, and the managed transaction will commit that to the database. If we were to have a failure at either our movie or our sync of our cast and crew members, this callback function will catch that error, roll back our changes, and they won't be applied. So this is definitely a cleaner approach to the try catch, and this is referred to as the managed transaction, as it's managing the commit and rollback actions for us. So cool, we'll give that a save, and we should be a-okay to jump back into our browser now. And let's try to make some changes. So we're already within an edit screen here, so let's go ahead and try to add in a couple of cast members. We'll do one there with a character name of maybe Clem, and we can click on add cast members to add a second one. And it looks like it does not want to render out our second one. So let's go ahead and inspect and open up our console here and see what our error is. So cannot access property after v is undefined expression members. I'm not 100% certain, but I think the issue might be, and I'm not sure why we weren't seeing this with our crew members, but I think the issue might be that we're referencing the ID here, which is the actual pivot table ID rather than the Synist ID, as the ID there would never change as we add more people. So let's go ahead and hide our browser back away and see if swapping that fixes this for us. So we'll switch this from just ID to Synist_ID. Which will then just push in the first Synist ID, automatically selecting them as the Synist ID rather than the pivot table ID. And we're going to want to make that switch in a couple more spots. So I'm going to give that a copy. We'll switch it here as well as there. And I think the last place that we would want to switch it, because it's already in place there, is up inside of our key. So let's give that a save and see if that fixes our cast members issue. And if it does, then we'll go through and apply that to our crew as well. So let's try adding one there. We can select somebody there. Add a cast member there, and yep, it sure enough seems to fix it. Okay, let's go apply that for our crew members as well. So we'll scroll up, let's expand our crew members. We want to switch the ID from that to that, scroll down, and apply the same thing here, there, and scroll down a little bit further, and right here where we're pushing into it, a default value as well. Okay, scroll back down to where we had our cast members, and we can go ahead and jump back into our browser, make sure that we can add somebody there. Okay, make sure that we can add somebody here. Select the person that we were working with before and put in our character name there, add another member, and cool. Okay, seems like everything's working now. Let's go ahead and select somebody else and put in a name there. We can go ahead and add in a second crew member as well. That works fine. Maybe they were in charge of food. Okay, let's go ahead and try to update our movie. And cool, so now you can see for our movie that we were working with, we have 2 cast members as well as 2 crew members. So everything there seemed to be working a-okay. Let's go ahead and go back into edit. Scroll on down, we should now see the exact same people, their titles, and their character names. And it seems like everything's working there too. Since we did not cover creation in the last lesson like I thought we did with our crew, let's go and create a new movie and make sure that everything's working there too. So my awesome movie 3, select a release date of maybe do the 29th. Maybe this is in production still. The writer is Lily. And the director is Naya. Abstract as awesome movie, the trilogy. We'll add in our crew members, and it looks like that's not working. So let's right click, inspect, take a look at our console, and cannot access property push members is undefined. Okay, that one's a little bit more straightforward of an issue. So let's go ahead, hide that back away, hide our browser back away, and this will be for both of them. So JSON stringify, we want to do cast members or an empty array. We want to do the exact same thing for our crew members. So let's scroll on up to where we have that and or an empty array there as well. So now let's give that a save, jump back into our browser. Everything should have refreshed. Looks like Firefox wants to hold on to my values. Give everything a hard refresh just to make sure it clears out. And let's try to add in a crew member now. There we go. And a cast member. Awesome. Okay, let's go and fill this all back out. So awesome movie 3, give it some release date. Say it's maybe in production. Select a writer. And select a director. Awesome movie, the trilogy. Our cast member, maybe we'll scroll down. They were in charge of food. And now our cast members, that was crew members that we just selected, sorry. Eldred, and give them a character name and a cast member. Do 2 here, Johanna, and maybe they play the boss. Okay, so we should have 1 crew member, 2 cast members, and this should be Awesome Movie, the trilogy, or Awesome Movie 3, I think we called it. So let's go and create this movie, and awesome. So it seems like everything worked there. This is called Awesome Movie 3. It's in production. The writers who we selected, directors Natasha. We have 2 cast members and 1 crew member. So everything there looks okay. We jump back in the edit, make sure everything pre-populates okay as well, which it does. So cool. Seems like we have everything working now. We have both create and edit. We can add in our crew and our cast members. We can also remove both as well. So if we remove somebody from our cast, we now just have 1 member in there. Awesome.